Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. And what I'm about to tell you starts not with a kiss or a fight or even a goodbye. It starts with an empty picture frame. It was 3:17 a.m. when I realized it was gone. I wasn't even looking for it. I was grabbing a glass of water, tripping over my own laundry, and wondering why the air in the house felt different, heavier. Then I passed the mantle, and I stopped. The picture of us from that trip to Yellowstone, the one where she wore that hideous green raincoat and I looked like a wet squirrel, was missing. The frame was still there, perfectly angled. But the photo was gone. No note, no text, no slammed door. Just an invisible knife slid right between my ribs. My name's Ellis, and I should have known then. I should have known that she wasn't just pulling away. She was erasing me, bit by bit. She didn't pack up everything and run. No, that would have been easier, cleaner. She dismantled me like a bomb squad disarming something unstable. First she stopped wearing her wedding ring, said it got in the way at spin class. Then she started calling me Ellis instead of babe. Then came the work retreats, the late returns, the laughter in the bathroom with the door closed. But I was too much of a coward to confront it. I just shrank. Until that Tuesday. She walked into the living room, completely calm, holding her phone and a pair of gold earrings I gave her for our 5th anniversary, and said, "I think you know this isn't working." I couldn't even look up from my cereal. I knew what was coming, and I didn't want to cry into my milk. "You're good," she said. "You're just not what I want anymore. I need someone who excites me, who challenges me, who deserves me." I remember the crunch of the spoon hitting the bowl more than her actual words. She left before dinner, said she was going to stay with her sister for a while. I watched her drive off while clutching a coffee mug that said, "Best husband ever." And I let her go, like an idiot. I didn't fight. I didn't beg. I just accepted that I wasn't enough. Maybe I never was. For weeks I avoided mirrors, canceled plans, slept on the couch like a guest in my own grief. And then, 2 months later, she had her high school reunion. I didn't even know she went until I saw a picture. She was in red, with him. And what happened at that reunion? That's where it all flipped. That's where she learned something that tore her world apart. And somehow, pulled me back into it. The thing about silence is you eventually get used to it. You start to recognize the rhythm of your own breathing. You memorize the sounds of your refrigerator humming, the distant traffic beyond your window, the hollow echo of your footsteps when no one's waiting in the next room. That was my reality for nearly 2 months after after she left. I didn't mention her name aloud anymore. I even stopped saying it in my head. It helped me pretend she was just a temporary visitor, someone who passed through my life like a storm, left some debris, and moved on. Then came the night of her reunion. She hadn't told me about it. Of course not. But I found out anyway thanks to her mistake. A mistake I can't imagine she forgave herself for. It was a Saturday. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to convince myself to fold the laundry that had been in the basket since. Well, since she left, that's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I usually don't answer those, but I glanced at the screen and saw a message that made my skin go cold. "You really showed him, babe." That speech was brutal. He looked like he was gonna cry. I stared at it, confused. My thumb hovered over the screen. A second message came. "Don't feel bad. He's just a ghost now. A before guy. You're a whole different woman now." Took me a second to realize. She'd messaged me by accident. Me, not him, whoever he was. Not the smug friend at her side. Not the guy in the red tie I'd see in the photos later. Me, the ghost. I Googled it. Reedridge High Class of 2005 Reunion. Photos. Posts. An entire album of the event already uploaded by someone named Marla Brenton. And there she was, front and center. Red dress, glass in hand, smiling like she was the main character in someone else's life. But then, there was a video. A clip posted by someone who probably thought they were capturing a proud, nostalgic moment. What it really showed was her, standing up in front of her old classmates, giving some kind of impromptu speech. Some of you know I was married, she said into the mic, swirling her wine, laughing too easily, to someone very safe, very stable, and very boring. Cue laughter. She continued, he meant well, but I outgrew him. He stayed exactly the same while I became someone else entirely. I didn't watch the rest. Couldn't. I just closed the laptop and sat in the dark. I wanted to disappear all over again. But I didn't, because something else happened the next day. Something I still can't explain. Someone sent me a message. Not from her account. Not from a friend. Just a burner account, no profile photo, no name. Just words. You don't know the full story, and she doesn't know what's coming. But you will. My stomach turned. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house felt like a warning. What was coming? What didn't I know? That message, whatever it meant, was the beginning of a storm I never saw coming. And trust me, when it hit, it changed everything. I didn't leave the house for 3 days after that anonymous message. I didn't shower. I didn't shave. I didn't even check the mailbox, which had become a sort of shrine to unpaid bills and discount coupons from pizza places we used to laugh at. I just sat there, rereading the message over and over. You don't know the full story, and she doesn't know what's coming. But you will. Inside was a plain yellow folder. No return address, no markings. Just my name scrawled in blue ink across the front in handwriting I didn't recognize. Not printed. Not typed. Handwritten. Back inside, I sat at the kitchen table. The same one where she used to drink her almond milk lattes and hum along to 2000s indie rock, and opened the folder. What I found inside made my hands start shaking. Photos. Dozens of them. At first, I thought they were old, maybe from vacations, parties, forgotten weekends. But they weren't mine. They weren't from our life. They were all of her, with a man I'd never seen before. Some were candid. Her laughing in a coffee shop, walking through a park, holding his arm outside a bar. Others more intimate. Her sitting on his lap at what looked like a private house party. Her holding his face like he was her whole world. The timestamps at the bottom of each photo made my stomach twist. These weren't recent. Some of them dated back nearly 2 years. Back when we were still sharing a bed, making plans, pretending we had a future. She'd been lying to me for that long. But that wasn't the worst part. Tucked in the very back of the folder was a single printed page. It was a bank statement. My name. My account. But with a wire transfer I didn't recognize. $5,000. Sent to a company I'd never heard of. On a date that coincided with her wellness retreat in upstate Vermont. She'd used my money to pay him for something. I don't know how long I sat there. The clock ticked. The refrigerator whirred. I couldn't hear any of it. Just the pounding in my chest. And then my phone buzzed again. A new message from the same anonymous account. You ready to see what else she took from you? My mouth went dry. And for the first time, I didn't feel sad. I felt cold. Something was coming. And I needed to know everything before it arrived. The folder never left my kitchen table. I couldn't bring myself to put it away. Not in a drawer, not in a bag, nowhere. It just sat there like a bomb with the pin halfway out. Every time I passed it, something inside me buzzed like static. A warning I couldn't explain. The photos, the wire transfer, the message, they weren't just pieces of evidence anymore. They were the final nail in the coffin of the life I thought I had. The Delilah I knew was officially gone. Replaced by a stranger who had not only moved on but weaponized my trust like it meant nothing. I didn't know where to start. I didn't even know who the man in the photos was. He looked older, maybe mid-40s, slicked back hair, a watch that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and that look in his eyes, the one that said I win. I hated him before I even knew his name. But then, the next clue didn't come from a message. It came from something far dumber. It came from my phone's voicemail, and it shouldn't have been there. I had a missed call from a blocked number, which isn't unusual. But the voicemail it left was a different kind of mistake. At first, I couldn't tell what I was hearing. There was music in the background, laughter, glass clinking. But then came her voice, Delilah's voice, drifting through like a ghost from the past. She was giggling, saying something like, "He has no clue. Honestly, I don't even feel guilty anymore." Another woman laughed and said, "Well, once you take the money, there's no going back." Then a different voice, male this time, said, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Let the loser grieve. He'll get over it. Or he won't." The message ended there. It wasn't meant for me. It was a voicemail recorded by accident. One of those pocket dials that happen once in 1,000 calls. But it told me more than I ever expected. She wasn't just emotionally done with me. She was mocking me, with him, and whoever else was part of their smug little circle. But I didn't have long to sit with it, because that same night, someone rang my doorbell. I wasn't expecting anyone. I don't have friends who just drop by. I stared through the peephole and saw a woman in a gray hoodie, her face half hidden, glancing over her shoulder like she was afraid of being seen. When I opened the door, she said my name, my full name, and asked if she could come in. She sat on the edge of the couch like it was made of glass. "I used to work with her," she said quietly. "Delilah, before she left the agency. I shouldn't be here. If they find out, I could lose everything." My voice barely worked. "Who's they?" She looked at me with eyes that didn't blink. "The man in those pictures. You don't know who he is, do you?" I shook my head. She swallowed hard, like she was about to confess to a crime. "Then you need to listen to me carefully, because he's not just some guy she cheated on you with. He's someone who ruins people for a living. And she's not just a victim. She's been helping him do it." She sat there for a full minute before she said anything else. I don't even think she was breathing, just frozen, like she was waiting for the ceiling to cave in. I didn't move either. I just stared at her, trying to piece together the threads of everything that had fallen apart. She said she worked with Delilah, but the way she said it, the way her hands trembled like she was being watched even now, I knew this wasn't about some office drama or casual workplace gossip. This was different, heavier, toxic. "She went by Delilah when she was with you," the woman finally whispered. "But that's not her real name." My stomach twisted. "What do you mean it's not her real name?" "She has at least 3 identities that I know of," the woman said, her voice flat like she had rehearsed it in her head 1,000 times. "She's not legally married to you. The marriage license is fake. Everything she told you about her family? Also fake. She doesn't have a sister. She never did. The man in those photos? He's part of a larger operation. They find lonely men with clean financial histories, emotionally manipulate them, and drain them. Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. You were one of at least 4. I could hear the blood in my ears. I honestly thought I was going to pass out. I had to grip the edge of the couch just to keep from sliding to the floor. My entire life, 10 years, was unraveling like a cheap rug. "You're lying," I whispered, because it was easier than accepting the alternative. She didn't flinch. She just reached into her bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a scan of a driver's license from another state. Same woman, different name, different birth date, same face, same perfect smile that had tucked me into bed for years and kissed me goodbye like she meant it. Only now I realized it was never real. None of it. She's not even who she pretended to be for you. You were never her husband. You were a target. My mouth was dry. I asked her name. This woman sitting in my living room unraveling my reality like it was a bedtime story. "Carmen," she said. "And I used to help them. Until it went too far." My hands curled into fists without me realizing. "Why are you telling me this now?" Carmen looked up at me with guilt etched so deep it made her look older than she probably was. "Because what happened at the reunion wasn't an accident. It was a trigger. You weren't supposed to find out anything. But she slipped. She made it personal. And now he's mad. Not just at her. At you." "She's coming back," Carmen said. "You need to be gone before that happens." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I had nothing else left. "Coming back?" "She left. She's with him now." Carmen looked at me like I was a child. "No, Ellis. She's coming back to finish what she started." They'd laugh. They'd file a report and forget it in a drawer. And so I sat, awake, waiting, until the knock came, at exactly 6:42 in the morning. Slow, soft, measured. And I knew, before I even reached the door, that it was her. Not Delilah. She stood on my doorstep like it was just another morning. Hair perfectly in place, lips curled into that familiar, practiced smile. The same one I used to wake up to, the same one I'd thought was mine. And in that moment, I realized how well she had studied me. Not loved, not cherished, studied, like a specimen, like a job. I didn't speak, couldn't. My throat tightened and my hands curled behind the doorframe just to stop them from shaking. "Hi, baby," she said, her voice sweet, almost musical. "Can I come in?" I didn't move, didn't step forward. I just blinked. My mind was racing with all the things I should say. Accuse her, scream at her, demand the truth. But instead, I just asked, "Why?" She tilted her head slightly, like I had asked what time it was. "Why what? Why did you come back?" She sighed and looked over her shoulder, as if checking to see if anyone was watching. Then, still holding her suitcase, she brushed past me and stepped inside like she'd never left. The audacity, the calmness. She walked back into my life like she hadn't burned it to ash, like I hadn't spent weeks collecting the pieces she shattered and pretending they were still shaped like something. "You've lost weight," she said casually, placing her suitcase by the wall. "You always stress-starve." It's cute. It wasn't cute. It was hollowing, and she knew that. I followed her into the kitchen, where she made a beeline for the fridge like muscle memory had never left her. She pulled out a bottle of water, sipped it, and leaned against the counter with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. "I know you got the folder," she said without looking at me. "I knew it when Carmen didn't show up at the safe house." "Safe house," I echoed, my voice thin and foreign in my own home. She turned to face me fully, finally, setting the bottle down with a quiet clink. "Yeah, she always gets squeamish around the emotional ones. Guess you made an impression." "I trusted you," I said. The words weren't strong or angry. They came out small, like a whisper you tell yourself before you break. "I know," she said, smiling sadly. "That's why it worked." Something inside me cracked. "You're not even Delilah," I said, stepping closer. "You lied about your name, your family, our marriage. You faked a life with me." She nodded once. No denial, no excuses, just a cruel kind of calm. "I did, and I was good at it too. But it got messy. You weren't supposed to matter." "Then why are you here?" I snapped, the crack in my voice now jagged. "If it's over, if you got what you came for, why the hell are you standing in my kitchen?" Her eyes flickered then, just for a second. Something beneath the surface shifted. And then she said something I wasn't ready for. "Because he's not done. And you know too much." I backed away slowly, heart pounding in my ears. "You're threatening me now?" "No," she said quickly, stepping forward. "I'm warning you. He's coming. You think he doesn't know you've got the voicemail? The photos? That Carmen broke protocol? You're not off the radar. You're a loose end." She looked at me like she pitied me, but there was no warmth in it. No remorse. Just resignation. "I can get you out," she said. "But it won't be free." I laughed. An ugly, broken laugh. "You ruined my life. And now you're offering to sell me a way out of it?" She didn't flinch. "This is the only offer you're going to get." I should have thrown her out. I should have called the cops. But instead, I stared at the woman I thought I loved, or maybe just the shell of her, and realized something terrifying. Part of me still wanted to believe her, and that was the most dangerous thing of all. I don't know why I didn't slam the door in her face that morning. I should have. I should have grabbed her by the arm, tossed her suitcase back out onto the porch, and told her to disappear just like she'd done to me. But instead, I sat at the edge of the dining room chair, staring at my cold coffee while she paced the room like she still owned it. She spoke like someone who had rehearsed the pitch 100 times. The out, the deal, the chance to disappear before it's too late. And for a man who hadn't felt in control of anything for months, the idea of escape felt seductive, even if I didn't trust a word from her mouth. She said the man from the photos, the one who had funded it all, was looking for a scapegoat. Someone to blame for the leak, the folder, Carmen's betrayal. Someone to make an example of. And because she had complicated the mission by returning to me, he was convinced I knew everything, even things I hadn't discovered yet. Delilah, or whatever her name really was, said she could get me out of the state undetected. New ID. A burner phone. Cash. She said she owed me that much. I wanted to laugh in her face. But instead, I asked her one question. What was real? She didn't answer at first. Just stared out the window like she was watching something only she could see. Then, quietly, she said, I don't know anymore. That was all she gave me, and that was somehow worse than a lie. Still, 2 hours later, I found myself in the passenger seat of a silver rental car, gripping a backpack filled with the contents of my ruined life. A toothbrush, some clothes, my laptop, and that stupid picture frame she'd emptied weeks ago. I don't know why I brought it. Maybe because it was the last physical proof of the illusion she built. Maybe because I needed something to destroy when it was all over. We drove for hours. She wouldn't say where we were going, only that it was safer than staying in town. I stared out the window most of the ride, counting road signs and rest stops, trying to memorize turns like it would somehow anchor me to something real. But it wasn't the road signs that stopped us. It was the black SUV parked crooked at the gas station outside a closed-down diner, 2 hours out of the city. Delilah saw it first. Her knuckles went white on the steering wheel, and without a word, she pulled into reverse and peeled out before I could ask anything. When I turned to look, a man stepped out of the SUV, sharp suit, shaved head, expression carved from stone, and he didn't chase us. He just watched, like a reminder, like a threat that didn't need to speak. She didn't say a word until 20 minutes later. We're not going to the cabin anymore. What cabin? I asked, realizing I never knew the plan to begin with. It's burned, she said flatly. Figuratively, maybe literally. Doesn't matter. They're onto us. You said you had a plan. I did. And now, she slammed her palm against the steering wheel. Now I'm improvising. That's when I knew I had made a mistake. A huge one. I should never have followed her. I should never have believed that there was a version of this where I got out clean. Because now we were in some nameless motel off an unmarked road, sharing a room where the lock barely clicked, and I couldn't sleep because every headlight that passed outside felt like the beginning of the end. She sat on the edge of the bed, loading something into a flash drive from her phone. This is everything I have on him, she said. Evidence, transfers, names. It'll buy us time if we hand it off. Hand it off to who? She looked up at me, and for the first time in days, I saw something crack behind her eyes. To the one person he's afraid of. I didn't ask who. I just nodded because it was easier than screaming. But I was done being a passenger. I knew what I had to do next. And if I was going down, I wouldn't be the only one dragged into the fire. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did she. We both sat in opposite corners of the motel room like ghosts waiting for the sun to come up and decide our fate. I kept thinking about the folder, the photos, the man in the SUV, and the weight of the lie I'd lived inside for nearly a decade. But most of all, I thought about what she'd said, that there was someone he was afraid of, and if there was even a sliver of truth left in her, I had to see it through. At sunrise, we drove to a library. Not a safe house, not a bunker, just a dusty old public library with flickering lights and a staff of 2. That's where we uploaded the drive, everything she had collected, and sent it, anonymously, to a contact listed only as S. Frost. No context, no demands, just the data and a message that read, "You're the last stop before he starts again." She never told me who that person was. I never asked. By noon, we were back in the car, driving nowhere. My phone had been off since the motel. But when I finally turned it back on, there was only one message. A blocked number. 3 words. It's over. Move. No threats. No promises. Just release. I stared at the screen for a long time, waiting to feel something. Fear. Rage. Relief. But I just felt light. Like I'd been holding my breath for months without realizing it. And now someone had finally let the air back in. She dropped me off 3 towns away, near a bus station. No goodbye, no apology, just a nod, and then she was gone. I never saw her again. Took me weeks to find any kind of balance. I moved, legally changed my last name, switched jobs, switched states. I even bought a plant, just to prove to myself that I could grow something real this time. And one afternoon, while unpacking a box of books in my new place, I found the frame again. The one she had emptied, the one I couldn't throw away. But this time I filled it, not with a photo of us, but with a sticky note I wrote that day, in my own shaky handwriting. You weren't too small. She was just too hollow. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Thanks for watching this wild journey here on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever had someone turn your world upside down, or faced a betrayal that made you question everything, you're not alone. Now it's your turn. Tell us in the comments. What's one real historical event that shocked you the most? Something that changed the course of history, or maybe just your own life? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your story.